The unexpected catalyst. The sterile white corridors of the Syndrol research vessel hummed with an eerie silence. Dr. Rowan Everhart stood perfectly still, her breathing measured, her mind racing faster than the ship's quantum drives. Around her, crystalline beings moved with calculating precision, their translucent bodies shifting like living prisms against the metallic walls. First contact had gone nothing like anyone expected. What began as a promising diplomatic mission had quickly devolved into a clinical study, with humans as the specimens. Rowan remembered the moment of arrival. The Syndrol Collective had intercepted the human exploration vessel near the Orion Nebula, their initial communications laden with clinical curiosity. "Your species presents fascinating biological anomalies," their lead researcher had stated, more of a proclamation than a greeting. Now, confined to a research chamber that was equal parts laboratory and prison, Rowan observed her captors. The Syndrol were a collective intelligence, each individual a node in a vast network of shared consciousness. They prided themselves on their ability to analyze, categorize, and ultimately control every biological system they encountered. But they had never met a human before. The chamber's walls were lined with intricate scanning equipment, holographic displays flickering with streams of data. Rowan could see her own biological readings, heart rate, neural activity, cellular regeneration, projected in real time. The Syndrol researchers moved around her, their appendages manipulating instruments with mechanical precision. "Specimen shows unusual neural plasticity," one of them communicated, its thought translating directly into Rowan's mind. "Adaptive response mechanism significantly beyond preliminary projections." Rowan allowed herself a slight smile. They were studying her, but she was studying them just as intently. The Syndrol had made a critical miscalculation. They viewed biological systems as predictable, controllable mechanisms. Humans, however, were anything but predictable. Adaptation wasn't just a biological process for them, it was a fundamental philosophy, a way of confronting the unknown. Her background as a xenobiologist gave her an advantage. Where the Syndrol saw data points, Rowan saw patterns, relationships, potential. She had spent her entire career understanding how life forms interact, adapt, and survive in the most challenging environments. A series of neural probes extended towards her, their tips glowing with a soft blue light. The Syndrol were preparing their first comprehensive scan, intending to map every nuance of her biological system. Rowan took a deep breath. This was where things would get interesting. The probes made contact, and immediately, the holographic displays began to cascade with information. But something was different. Instead of passive reception, Rowan's neural pathways were actively engaging with the scanning technology. "Impossible," one of the Syndrol researchers communicated, its crystalline form vibrating with confusion. "The specimen is interfacing with the scanning matrix." Rowan wasn't just being scanned. She was scanning back. Her years of research, her deep understanding of biological systems, her innate human curiosity, all of these were now turning the Syndrol's own technology against them. Each probe that sought to extract information was inadvertently providing her with insights into their complex neural network. The chamber grew silent. The Syndrol researchers stopped moving, their collective consciousness suddenly disrupted by something they had never encountered, a subject that didn't just respond to their investigation, but actively participated in it. Rowan understood something fundamental about human nature that the Syndrol had overlooked. Survival wasn't just about resistance. It was about transformation. About turning every challenge into an opportunity for growth, for understanding. As the neural probes continued their dance, Rowan realized this was more than just a scientific encounter. This was a first glimpse into humanity's potential, a potential that defied every conventional understanding of biological limitation. The Syndrol had come looking for a specimen to study. Instead, they had awakened something far more profound. A catalyst of human resilience was about to change everything. Resistance in isolation. The detention facility was a marvel of alien engineering, a labyrinth of energy barriers, neural dampeners, and psychological isolation chambers. Lieutenant Zara Holbrook had been here for what felt like weeks, though time seemed to blur in this sterile, windowless environment. The Syndrel believed in absolute control. Each prisoner was carefully separated, stripped of context, of connection. Their collective intelligence relied on the principle that isolation breeds compliance. They had never encountered a human. Zara's cell was a masterpiece of technological suppression. Walls that shifted color to induce disorientation. Ambient sounds designed to break mental focus. Electromagnetic fields that supposedly neutralized higher cognitive functions. To the Syndrel, it was the perfect interrogation environment. To Zara, it was an opportunity. Her military training had prepared her for far more than physical resistance. Psychological warfare was her true battlefield. While the Syndrel monitored her vital signs and neural patterns, she was meticulously collecting information, understanding their system's weaknesses. The first thing she noticed was the rhythm of the facility. Despite their advanced technology, the Syndrel had predictable patterns. The energy barriers pulsed with a consistent frequency. The neural dampeners had microsecond gaps in their coverage. The psychological manipulation techniques followed a precise, almost mathematical sequence. Most prisoners would see these as insurmountable barriers. Zara saw them as a complex puzzle waiting to be solved. She began with small acts of resistance. Deliberately varying her breathing patterns to disrupt their monitoring algorithms. Creating mental exercises that generated unexpected neural responses. Each time the Syndrel tried to analyze her, she would introduce a new variable, a new complexity they couldn't immediately categorize. The isolation was meant to break her spirit. Instead, it became her training ground. Zara recalled her training at the Advanced Psychological Resilience Institute. They had prepared human military personnel for scenarios far beyond traditional combat, scenarios where the battlefield was as much mental as physical. She remembered her instructor's words, "Isolation is not weakness. Isolation is an opportunity to reorganize, to strategize, to become something they cannot predict." Her current cell was a testament to that philosophy. The Syndrel had access to vast technological resources. They could manipulate energy fields, create immersive psychological environments, and process information at speeds incomprehensible to most biological entities. But they had a fundamental flaw: they viewed everything through the lens of their collective intelligence. Humans were different. Individuality was not a weakness. It was a strength. Zara began to map the facility's systems using nothing but observation and mental calculation. The slight flicker of energy barriers. The microsecond delay in neural scanning equipment. The predictable rotation of guard patterns. Each observation was a piece of intelligence, a potential point of exploitation. She started sending subtle signals. Not through any communication device, those had been neutralized, but through her own biological responses. Slight variations in heart rate. Unexpected neural pathway activations. Biorhythmic patterns that defied their prediction models. The Syndrel became increasingly frustrated. Their initial confidence began to waver. How could a single human continuously disrupt their most advanced interrogation systems? What they didn't understand was that Zara wasn't just resisting. She was learning. Adapting. Preparing. Her isolation was transforming from a punishment into a strategic advantage. Every moment was an opportunity to understand her environment, to identify weaknesses, to plan her next move. The Syndrel believed they were studying her. In reality, she was studying them. As another wave of psychological manipulation washed over her cell, this time designed to induce feelings of hopelessness and submission, Zara allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible smile. They had no idea what was coming. The quantum breakthrough. The makeshift laboratory was a testament to human ingenuity. Assembled from scraps of alien technology, discarded components, and Dr. Finn Reyes's remarkable ability to see potential where others saw only junk, the workspace hummed with an energy of quiet determination. Finn had been a theoretical physicist before his unexpected detainment by the Syndrel. Now, he was something more, an innovator operating at the razor's edge of possibility. The Alien Detention Center had become his crucible, transforming limitations into opportunities. Around him, half-dismantled alien communication devices formed a complex mosaic of potential. Quantum processors, originally designed for the Syndrel's massive information networks, now lay partially reconstructed. Each component was a puzzle piece, and Finn was determined to create something entirely unexpected. The Syndrel had made a critical error. They viewed technology as a closed system, a perfect mechanism that could be fully controlled and understood. Humans saw technology differently, as a living, evolving concept that could be reimagined, repurposed, transformed. Finn's background in quantum entanglement theory gave him a unique perspective. While the Syndrel believed they could isolate and control information, he understood the fundamental interconnectedness of quantum systems. Every barrier was just another challenge to be overcome. His current project was audacious. Using fragments of the Syndrel's own communication technology, he was attempting to create a quantum communication device that could bypass their most sophisticated encryption systems. It wasn't just about communication, it was about proving a point. Humans could innovate under any circumstances. The device took shape slowly. A neural interface cobbled together from alien circuitry and Finn's deep understanding of quantum mechanics. Each connection was a calculated risk, each adjustment a leap of intellectual faith. The Syndrel researchers monitoring his cell couldn't comprehend what they were seeing. Their scanning technologies registered his work as random noise, unable to parse the intricate design taking shape. To them, it was meaningless. To Finn, it was a symphony of possibility. He remembered his mentor's words from years ago: true innovation happens when you stop seeing limitations and start seeing potential. Those words had never been more relevant than now. The quantum communicator began to take shape. It wasn't just a device, it was a bridge. A way to connect, to communicate, to break through the barriers the Syndrel believed were impenetrable. As he worked, Finn understood something profound about human creativity. It wasn't just about solving problems. It was about reimagining what was possible. The Syndrel saw the universe as a fixed system to be controlled. Humans saw it as a canvas of infinite potential. Days turned into weeks. The device grew more complex, more refined. Finn used everything at his disposal: mathematical models stored in his memory, theoretical constructs he had developed years ago, and an unshakable belief that there was always a way forward. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. A subtle alignment of quantum states, a momentary resonance that most would have missed. But Finn caught it. A flicker of possibility that suggested something extraordinary was about to happen. The quantum communicator hummed to life, its energy signature unlike anything the Syndrel had ever encountered. It wasn't just a device. It was a statement. A declaration of human potential. Something was about to change. And the Syndrel had no idea what was coming. Networked rebellion. The communication systems hub was a marvel of improvised engineering. Aria Rodriguez moved her fingers across a complex array of repurposed alien technology, her eyes reflecting the cascading streams of data that danced across makeshift holographic displays. What the Syndrel didn't understand was the true power of human networks. Information wasn't just data, it was a living, breathing ecosystem of connection, creativity, and collective intelligence. Aria had been a communication systems expert before her capture. Now, she was something more, a conductor of a symphony of resistance that spanned multiple detention facilities, multiple species, and multiple dimensions of possibility. Finn's quantum communicator had been the key. A breakthrough that transformed their isolated resistance into a coordinated network of unprecedented complexity. Each detained human was no longer an individual, they were a node in a vast, adaptive intelligence network. The Syndrol believed in collective consciousness through uniformity. Humans demonstrated collective consciousness through diversity. Small fragments of information began to weave together. A neural pattern discovered by Rowan in her initial encounters. A communication frequency variation mapped by Zara during her isolation. A quantum resonance frequency developed by Finn. Each piece seemingly random, but to Arya, they were threads of a larger tapestry. Her fingers danced across alien interfaces, translating, transforming, connecting. The communication hub was more than a technological marvel, it was a living organism of human potential. The Syndrol monitoring systems began to show signs of disruption. Impossible connections. Unpredictable data streams. Information that seemed to emerge from nowhere, everywhere, simultaneously. What they were witnessing was the true nature of human connectivity. Not a hierarchical system, but a rhizomatic network. No central point of control, but an adaptive, self-organizing intelligence that could route around any obstacle. Arya understood something fundamental. Resistance wasn't about fighting. It was about connecting. About creating possibilities where none seemed to exist. Her network grew. Detained humans in different facilities began to share more than just information. They shared strategies, hopes, collective understanding. Each communication was a small act of defiance, a subtle expansion of human potential. The Syndrol's collective intelligence relied on predictability. They could process vast amounts of information, but only when that information followed their predetermined patterns. Humans introduced something entirely different: chaos, creativity, unexpected connections. A message began to take shape. Not through traditional communication channels, but through a complex quantum entanglement network that defied conventional understanding. It wasn't just a message. It was a statement of human resilience. We are not alone. We are not isolated. We are connected. As the communication network expanded, something remarkable began to happen. The very systems designed to contain humans were now being transformed into conduits of resistance. The Syndrol had made a critical error. They thought they were studying humans. In reality, humans were studying them. And they were about to change everything. Turning the tide. The bridge of the human resistance vessel hummed with a tension that was equal parts anticipation and calculated resolve. Commander Marcus Whitley stood at the center, his weathered hands gripping the tactical interface as the quantum communication network pulsed with information gathered from their detained colleagues. What had begun as a series of individual acts of resistance had transformed into something far more profound. The Syndrol had attempted to study humanity, to break its spirit through isolation and technological manipulation. Instead, they had awakened a force they could never have anticipated. The quantum communication network developed by Finn, expanded by Arya, and initialized by Rowan and Zara was more than a technological marvel. It was a living testament to human adaptability. Syndrol fleet positioning confirmed, Lieutenant Kira Nomura called out, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. Their defensive formations are based on their traditional collective strategy, completely vulnerable to asymmetric approach. Marcus allowed himself a slight smile. The Syndrol's greatest weakness had always been their inability to truly understand individual initiative. Their collective intelligence was a strength, and their most critical vulnerability. The Resistance fleet was unlike any military formation in human history. Each ship was not just a weapon, but a node in a living, breathing network. Information flowed between vessels with a speed and complexity that defied traditional military doctrine. Where the Syndrol saw individual ships, humans saw a unified, adaptive organism. Activate quantum resonance protocol, Marcus commanded. The ships began to move. Not in a traditional linear formation, but in a complex, almost organic pattern that seemed to defy the very laws of spatial navigation. Each vessel adjusted its trajectory microsecond by microsecond, creating a combat strategy that was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. The Syndral fleet responded with their standard defensive maneuvers. Massive energy weapons powered up. Shield harmonics aligned. Their collective intelligence began processing millions of potential scenarios. They were already too late. Finn's quantum communication technology had done more than just connect humans. It had provided a fundamental understanding of the Syndral's technological ecosystem. Their shield frequencies, their communication protocols, their energy transfer mechanisms, all laid bare. Targeting synchronized, Kira announced. The ship's weapons were no longer simple projectile or energy devices. They were quantum-entangled adaptive systems that could change their very nature mid-attack. The first wave of attacks was unlike anything the Syndral had ever encountered. Weapons that could phase through their most advanced shields. Communication disruptions that turned their collective intelligence against itself. Technological adaptations that rewrote the very rules of space combat. Marcus watched as the Syndral fleet began to falter. Not through overwhelming force, but through something far more powerful: unpredictability, creativity, individual initiative. This was more than a battle. It was a demonstration of human potential. The quantum communication network pulsed with the combined experiences of every human who had been detained, studied, and underestimated. Rowan's initial neural insights. Zara's psychological resilience. Finn's technological breakthrough. Aria's communication network. Each contributed to this moment. They're attempting to recalibrate, Kira reported. But they can't. Because they don't understand, Marcus finished. The Syndral had spent generations believing that collective intelligence meant uniformity. Humans had just demonstrated that true collective intelligence emerged from diversity, from individual creativity, from the ability to adapt. As the battle reached its climax, something became abundantly clear. The humans weren't just fighting a war. They were redefining the very concept of intelligence, of connection, of possibility. The tide had turned. And the universe would never be the same.